particular year, of course, in 1977, it was the Queen's Silver Jubilee. And it was an amazing time, in fact, because for many people, it was the very first time they celebrated such a huge royal event. Street parties, celebrations, and you've got to remember, as I often say here on the show to our beautiful chums, we all remember, don't we, a time before everybody was looking down on a phone, whether it be on a train, a bus, a car. Everybody was taking in the world around them, and you did. I think you were more involved, and you did sort of take notice of your neighbours, communities were stronger, that sort of thing. This was the Silver Jubilee celebrations, and naturally that year it was a big event because the Royal Variety Show wanted to do something rather special for Queen Elizabeth, and rightly so. So they asked her, well, who would you like to see? Now, the contents may surprise you. Let me explain. Morning, good to see you. Thank you so much as ever for your time. The beautiful, of course, Houses of Parliament behind me on a rather dusky, dark now day. It's been terrible actually here. It's almost like the depths of winter, and we're only, as I say, in the first few days of September. What's happened? Yes, let's not, no, we're not mentioning the dreaded C word. Not calories, no, climate change. Calories are bad enough, though, aren't they? It's warm, but it's just a miserable day, been raining all the time. But that, of course, is the English weather, the seasons that so many people actually do enjoy when they're over here. Something that, of course, our late monarch enjoyed way back in 1977 was this, the Royal Variety Show. Not known really for actually enjoying such an event because she kind of, as we all know, preferred the world of horses and that sort of thing. But naturally, because it was a special year, she went along to the London Palladium. And this particular show was put spectacularly together by Bernard Delfont and Robert Nesbitt with a wonderful cast, including the likes of Paul Anka and so many more. But they asked her, well, who would you like to host the show? And that particular year, she said, well, you know, I really enjoy the comedy of Bob Hope. Now, Bob had already done Royal Variety performances in front of Her Majesty the Queen before, so he knew what to expect and all that sort of stuff. He didn't really like it when he was a guest. You know, he wanted to be the host because he didn't like all the waiting around. But here's where it gets really interesting. The other people that Her Majesty the Queen wanted to see were the hit of that particular year, none other than the Muppets. And in particular, she loved the two characters that sat in the box, remember? They just picked apart all the acts. Absolutely brilliant. Their put-downs were wonderful. Now, what's interesting, as many people also know, and I've mentioned this before, when you appear on a Royal Variety Show, you don't get paid. Nowadays, you may be lucky to scrape in a few expenses, but it's the privilege, the honour of appearing before the British monarchy. That's what did it. Now, as I say, it was a packed show with all the usual delights, wonderful dancers, comedians, Paul Anka, the American singing superstar, and many other delightful things. But Bob Hope was being a bit of a stick in the mud, and he wanted some money, at least expenses. They didn't do that, allegedly. So he said, well, that's okay, that's fine. Now, what was interesting, what emerged, and nobody realised this until after the show, is that Bob decided to take matters into his own hands. And he did this by simply making sure that he got money one way or another. Deal with an American oil giant at the time, Texaco. And they decided that they were going to fund the trip for Bob Hope to the Royal Variety Show. But there was a bit of a catch involved that many people got caught out. You see, this was broadcast by the BBC, in which ads were banned. You understand how this works now. But Bob pushed ahead. And the reason why Bob actually needed a fee, he wasn't a cheap date because he brought along all of the gag writers with him, many up to about 15, sometimes 20. Unlike other comedians, say like Norman Wisdom, Tommy Cooper, he needed these up-to-date gag writers which would be sitting with him from the moment he went on stage, giving him the best quips, the best jokes, that sort of stuff. So what happened was, Bob decided to take things into his own hands, allegedly, and first and foremost, he made sure that the two guys in the Muppet box, the two guys I've told you about, they mentioned Texaco in their act, their speech, and then Bob worked that back into his speech, literally his comedy patter, during the show, meaning Texaco were, of course, aligned to Bob Hope and, more importantly, broadcast to the nation, all thanks to the Royal Variety. And it's interesting because even though it didn't go out live and it was a pre-recorded show, no one at the BBC had the foresight or indeed the inkling to try and clip it out. So that's exactly how, on that special year for the Silver Jubilee of our wonderful Queen Elizabeth, Bob Hope managed to do, well, something that nobody else had done until that point, was literally be paid. As I say, Texaco, well, they paid for all the luxurious accommodation in a London hotel, the flights, everything. And of course, Bob got all the praise for hosting, as he should have done, of course, a wonderful, wonderful royal variety show. As ever with celebrities, they always make sure they come first, right? Neil Sean in the very heart of London.